City Council meeting of Thursday, June 20th, 2019. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do roll call, I'd like to recap the first 5 minutes of our last City Council meeting on June 6th. Unfortunately, we did experience some audio issues during our broadcast, so some of the first part of our meeting was missed by viewers. So during that first 5 minutes, the City Council made an announcement that Councilmember Conway has requested and was granted a leave of absence from the City Council for a 90-day period due to medical leave. And our interim city attorney, McMorrow, also reported that no action was taken during the closed session regarding initiation of litigation. There was no member of the public who wished to speak during oral communications, and all of the consent calendar items were unanimously approved by council members present. So with that, I ask the city clerk for roll call, please.
Please note for the record that all council members are present except for Council Member Conway.
And if we could have a report out from closed session.
The council met in closed session about personnel matters and threatened litigation, and no action was taken.
That brings us to adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, and do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to oral communications number 1. I do have one slip. This is for items that are not on our agenda. And this slip is for Ruth Sofair Morse regarding Gay Pride. Yes. Turn that around.
Hi. Today I called Madison Davis to ask if Brisbane could raise the gay pride flag in honor of the LGBTQ members of this community. This year alone, approximately 15,000 incidents of hate violence against LGBTQ people have occurred. 15,000. 26 trans women of color alone have been murdered. There are 10 gay members of Congress. Our representation is woefully disproportionately smaller than the actual numbers we represent in this nation. In our small community on the 2 blocks that I live on alone, there are 6 gay households, 3 of which have children that have attended the Brisbane schools or did attend the Brisbane schools. I myself have served on the board of the Mothers of Brisbane and the Silver Spot Co-op, and briefly as a traffic commissioner for our wonderful and diverse community. Each year I have waited for the community to raise the flag, for the flag to fly on Main Street as they do on Market Street in San Francisco. Frankly, I really thought that the community would do it on their own, that we gay folks wouldn't have to come in and ask. It is powerful when we gay people march. It's powerful when we protest. But like any civil rights movement, we will never achieve our full equality without those of you who are not us. You have the power to create our equality by remembering us, by always demanding our rights and our liberties, and by acknowledging and fighting against the injustices that we face. I'm so grateful that after my call today to Madison, I heard back from her so quickly, and that, of course, a pride flag would be raised, both in front of City Hall and that on the flagpole that greets us as we enter town. And I just want to say thank you so much. It is so lovely and beautiful to live in a community that, particularly at a time in our nation where respect for diversity is at an all-time low, that we live in a community that respect for diversity is at an all-time high. And I think that we should be proud of that.
Yeah.
So that's all, and thank you. I brought my daughter here today because I wanted her to hear this, and you, Madison, have known her all her life.
Yes. Hi, Zelia.
It's really sweet.
Thank you for coming, and I want to apologize on behalf of the city of Brisbane that it took you giving me a call for this to be a conversation. It should have been something that happened a long time ago. But I think everyone here on the council wants to immediately right that wrong. I'm not seeing anything otherwise. I've heard from staff earlier today that we absolutely can get those flags raised, and we can plan for next year to have flags up visitation as we do for President's Day or for the election. We can do that during Gay Pride to further make everyone feel welcome and celebrate, the LGBTQ members all across the world. So thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Madam Mayor, could I get 2 points of clarification, perhaps while Ruth is still here?
Sure.
I just want to clarify that we want the flags flown below the national ensign as opposed to in lieu of the national ensign.
Oh, no.
And I need clarification on the dates.
I just assumed that they would go up during Gay Pride weekend, but
I can't seem to find a consistent date. Maybe we can talk later, Ruth, and we'll get it.
I think it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate for the month of June every year because that is Gay Pride month. Ruth did ask me just for the weekend, but I think it's appropriate to do it for the entire month.
Stonewall took place about a week ago,
Right.
Thursday, technically.
Okay, so I think it's going to take us till about the end of June to get the flags. Is it okay if I coordinate directly offline with Ruth, ma'am?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
I'll do it.
we
I'll
can
come over and talk.
we can probably get 2 flags for City Hall and for the park, and then for next year we can plan for visitation, and maybe that's during when San Francisco has its Gay Pride, festivities. We can coordinate it with that. Great. Okay. Any other member of the public wishing to comment during oral communications number 1? This would be on an item that's not on our agenda. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and move to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to adopt items A through G?
I make a motion to adopt items A through G on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to swearing in of our new committee members. Item A, administer oath of office to newly appointed committee members. Lita Reyes for Public Arts Selection Committee, term through August 2019 or selection completion. Evan Tiapula, Public Art Selection Committee, term through August 2019 or selection completion. Carl Lamb, Open Space and Ecology Committee, term through January 2022. Alex Bain, Complete Streets Safety Committee, term through January 2022. Alex Lau, Complete Streets Safety Committee, term through January 2022. And Christian Cabrera, Complete Streets and Safety Committee, term through January 2020. I'd like to invite the newly appointed committee members up here to get sworn in by our city clerk, Ingrid Padilla.
Listen to.
I, Carl Lamb, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, to the Constitution of California. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties that I shall enter.
Congratulations.
doing that oath on,
Yeah. I always get sort of. Congratulations to all our new committee members and commissioners. I know that is a little bit of a tongue twister sometimes. So congratulations. We do have a couple of members that unfortunately were not able to make it tonight. So we will reschedule them so that they can take their oath at a later time. That brings us to public hearing. And item A, consider adoption of resolution number 2019-31, amending the master fee schedule adopted on July 19th, 2018. Staff report, please.
Yes. So on June 10th, 2002, the city adopted Ordinance 468, which set the master fee schedule by resolution and allows us to increase those fees every year. In 2018, the annual inflationary increase was 4.5%. Staff is recommending that we increase our fees by 4.5% to keep pace with inflation. The only fees that would not increase by this are the daily rate the monthly rate and the 15-day punch pass at the pool, because the daily rate did not increase, and we're trying to keep a ratio between the daily rate and those two rates. So if you approve this resolution, it would go into effect 60 days thereafter, so it would go into effect on August 19th, 2019.
Okay. Any council questions?
I have none.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no hands, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to council discussion. What's the council's pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-31, amending the master fee schedule.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to old business. Item A, consider adoption of the following resolutions concerning wages, hours, and working conditions. Staff report, please.
Good
You want
evening.
me to read out the whole list, items 1 through 11, or?
Actually, I was just going to give you a summary staff report
Okay.
regarding approval of resolutions 2019-34 through 2019-44, adopting pay schedule and master pay schedules effective June 30th, 2019. In 2016, the city reached agreement with all of the employee and bargaining groups outlining wages, benefits, and working conditions for each of the respective groups. That information is posted regularly on our website under the Human Resources area. Back in November of 2016, CalPERS issued a circular letter clarifying that pay schedules must comply with their government code. In order to meet that, the city started posting a master pay schedule and bringing the individual pay schedules for each bargaining group and the hourly pay schedule to council so that we can meet those requirements. Today, staff is presenting the upcoming pay increase that is already agreed upon for June 30th, 2019, which is basically a 2% increase for all the bargaining groups. The other request that we have is historically the city council has approved pay increases for the hourly unrepresented employees that mirror the pay increases of represented bargaining groups. So in order to continue this practice, staff is asking council to also approve a similar 2% increase to the pay scales for hourly employees. We recommend that these resolutions as listed be approved so that we can work towards retaining and attracting the quality and expertise of staff required by council and the community. And at this time, I can answer any questions.
Council questions?
No.
Nope. No questions. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item or these items? Seeing no one, that brings us to council discussion. What's the council's pleasure?
I'd make a motion to, do we need to read all these resolutions separately? No. Okay. Resolution 2019-34 through 2019, 44. Amending the city council, the city of Brisbane master fees, wages. Not master wages, but. Is that good?
Is that good?
Enough.
If I understood the motion, it was to move Resolution 2019-34A through 2019-44A regarding the City of Brisbane's adopting the master pay schedules for all employees. Is that correct?
I don't think the A is in the resolution. I think
it's
that's
a
mid-A.
resolution.
Thank you for that. I read it as it was.
But that's okay.
I thought that too.
Thank you.
Yes, that was my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. New business. Item A, policy for funding pension and other post-employment benefits, OPEB, unfunded liabilities. Staff report, please.
Madam Mayor and Council, I'm going to make a couple preliminary comments, and then Sturt will walk you through both items A and B. There probably is, next to the housing crisis, probably no issue that has gotten more airtime and print time in California than the pension liability issue. We're affected by that as all cities that are part of the CalPERS system. However, I think we can take a lot of pride in the fact that we have really taken steps to get out in front of it. We started a fund a couple of years ago. It's a 115 trust fund, IRS 115 trust fund. Tonight we're going to walk you through some policy changes with regards to that trust fund that we think will make the city in a much stronger financial position to deal with our unfunded liabilities going forward and put us into a fairly enviable position in terms of cities even in our own area, let alone across the state. The second thing I'd like to just speak to real briefly is the capital improvement program, which will come up right after that. The capital improvement program is something that we review every 2 years on our off-budget year. As you know, we do a 2-year budget. This year, we are going to present to you 2 or 3 different projects that for your consideration. When you review the capital budget, if there are additional projects that you would like to see funded, we do believe that this is a fairly good year. As you know, you have a policy that you're going to potentially direct certain revenues that were not projected in your fund balance to both capital as well as to the pension liability issue. We believe there will be funds available, and that's something we would come back to you in October of this year. One final comment on that, and I've stated this before, and we'll continue to talk about it. The issue of capital funds in the general fund has been an issue for as long as I've been here. We've about 10 years ago got the voters to support a business license measure that put money into capital. As you know, we directed all of that money a couple of years ago into the library project, so we don't have any general fund capital dollars designated other than monies that we might be able to secure at the end of the year. However, the good news is that as that business license capital fund grows, and we think it will with new additional businesses that will come into Brisbane, both at Sierra Point and then ultimately down the line sometime in the future in the Baylands, we'll be able to pay off the loans for the library quicker and then be able to secure a funding source for general fund projects. I think that 10 years from now or so, future city manager and future city council will have probably in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $700,000 a year to be able to use on capital projects. So I think that's the good news. So in both of these items, we've done, I think, really good planning as a city, the council and the staff working together to put future city councils into even a much better position down the line. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stuart.
You make it hard for finance directors to be pessimistic, Clay. It's not really nice. It's our job. Yeah, we're supposed to be we're the pessimists. So, as a pessimist, let me get to the current situation. So, our pension unfunded liability right now is at about $24 million. Our annual cost is about $1.2 million, and in 2030-31 it'll increase to about $2.7 million. After that point, it starts decreasing as our classic employees no longer are need to be funded because we will have paid off the last recession by then. This assumes that the PERS is going to earn an interest rate of 7% a year throughout these years. On the OPEB unfunded liability side, there's a $5.6 million unfunded liability. The annual cost is right now $630,000. That will increase actually minimally to $775,000 by 2030-31. That assumes an interest rate of 6.25%. The reason it's not quite as big of an issue as the pension is because on OPEB we changed from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan in 2008. So we've limited the number of people who can be on that plan. The city has set reserves aside in the past, as Clay said. We are in a very enviable position as a city. We have money set aside for unanticipated events. We have money set aside for the next recession. And we have money set aside for one-time budget impacts. We do that every year. We go through that analysis. We also have created a facility maintenance fund. We've created a vehicle maintenance fund. And we have put money into the OPEB trust and the pension trust. Right now we have about $2 million in the OPEB trust. And after the last council action on the pension trust, we'll have about $1 million in there. Our city finances are improving. This is what makes it hard to be a finance director in this city. I can't be quite as pessimistic as my peers are. So our sales tax, our latest projection is at $5.6 million. As of March, I had projected 5.3, so we've been improving a little bit since then. I had 4.4 million in the budget. That gives you an idea of just how much growth we've had over the last couple of years. Our property tax, I project to increase by $700,000 by 24-25, and that's because of the new development out on Sierra Point. We get 20% of property tax that's collected out there. Gives you an idea of how much is going to be collected out there overall. The City Council put on the ballot a cannabis tax for this November. If that tax passes, we anticipate that will increase our revenues by about $300,000 when that's in full force for a year. That's based on the one current business in town, and it doesn't include any retail sales from that business, both of which the City Council has. We've heard that there's other businesses that may want to move into town, and the City Council is looking at approving retail. The TOT, we're looking to increase from 12% to 14%. That's going to increase revenues about $400,000 a year. In 27-28, the successor agency, which was the former redevelopment agency, ends. That will increase our property tax revenues to the city's general fund by $400,000 a year. In fiscal year 23-24, we will pay off our 2013 pension obligation bond, which will be a $380,000 savings to the city. And in 2029-2030, we will pay off our City Hall completion bond, and that will be $180,000 a year savings to the city. So as you see, our finances have been improving steadily over the past couple of years and anticipate continuing to improve. However, as Clay said, there are still a number of needs that exist in the CIPs. The only funding source we have at this point directly for it is the business license tax for businesses above $10 million. We've committed that money to pay for the library. The anticipation is that's going to, if we don't have any new businesses come into town, that we would be committed through the year 2050 on that money. So there would be no money for CIP capital projects other than what would become available through the general fund excess revenues over expenditures. In addition to the capital projects, one of the things that Clay did not talk about, but is a growing need within the city and a growing need within the era that we're in, is our technology. We do not have a citywide GIS and permitting system that everybody links up to. So, if our business license information is separate from our planning information, our public works information is separate from that, the goal is to be able to have a database that links all of our our property information together. So when you pull up a property, you would know what kind of business is in there, what kind of business license it generates. You would know what kinds of meter it would have. You would know what the permits are on it. That is not something that we have, but is something that is very much in the forefront of a lot of cities right now. We also don't have a citywide customer relation management system. This is something a lot of cities are going to make sure that we are providing the best customer service we can to our community members. When a community member calls up, each individual call is basically its own separate issue, so we don't really link together issues very well. And we do that because we're a small town, but we can use technology to make that better. And then one of the other issues that's just beginning out there, and I'm sure this is going to be a big issue as we go through with the Baylands, is the smart city infrastructure. What do we need to do to become a smart city? What kind of infrastructure do we need to be able to have Wi-Fi available throughout the city? What kind of information do we need if we want to start being able to link up? In some cities, what they do is they have their garbage cans, city-owned garbage cans, linked up on a database so you know when they're full. We don't have that ability, but that way what you're able to do is if you have remote garbage cans, you don't have to go out there and check them every day. You only need to go and empty them when they're full. So there's a lot of technology out there that you can do, but that's another issue that we haven't really addressed yet, but as a city we need to. So there are still needs that we have, even though our revenues are growing. The subcommittee looked at a recommendation on the pension trust. The subcommittee wants to set aside 2 years' payment for the unfunded liability. That's approximately $5 million. What that money would be able to be used for would be to make pension payments. So if we were facing a recession, we'd be able to make our payment out of the trust without impacting our day-to-day decisions for that purpose. Also, it would allow us in the future to be able to make other decisions that if we don't run into a recession and we're able to make our payments, but one year we have a particular capital project that we want to do, we can use some of the trust fund to pay off pension costs and use general fund money to pay for capital projects if there's a big enough capital project, and then find a way to refund that trust fund. Also, as you can tell, based on the projections that by the year 2036, 2037, we start decreasing our payment, that fund could also be used to maybe make some of our normal cost payments to set aside more money in the general fund for other purposes. The method that the subcommittee suggested to do this was to set aside $500,000 in fiscal year 2021, and that would leave, based on the projections with the new financial information, about $100,000 that year for other projects, and then set aside $1 million each year from 2021, 22 to 23, 24, and that would be in those years. There'd still be an additional $200,000 to $700,000 available for additional projects in those years. Gives you an idea of how much growth we're expecting over the next 3 to 5 years in revenues. This would, by 23, 24, we would anticipate having about $5 million in the fund, so it would be fully funded by the year 23, 24. The city council subcommittee also is recommending to accelerate the funding or provide additional reserves if PERS doesn't meet their 7% interest. So what they are recommending is allocating 50% of any unanticipated reserves to the 115 trust, and the other 50% would be allocated for CIPs or other council-determined needs. The idea would be is if the PERS is only earning 6% a year, then we create a bigger unfunded liability, and therefore we need more money. So it's always a good idea to put more money into that trust fund when we have that opportunity. So that is the subcommittee's recommendation on the pension trust fund. When it comes to the OPEB fund,
I do have a question. Do we have like a breakdown of what, if we didn't do this, how long it would take to pay and what our payments would be, and then including this? I mean, it's hard for me just to kind of, look at this slide and say, yeah, okay, that sounds good. I mean, I'm all in favor of paying things down. I mean, we have a 15-year mortgage on our house, and we add extra money to that payment. But there comes a certain point where you need to have money for other things. So I'm just trying to find that balance, and just looking at that slide, it doesn't give that information to me.
So I'll add in that when we had our subcommittee meeting, Councilmember Cunningham and I, we looked at it, and while it might not be, we did have a very long, wide spreadsheet with when payoff dates would be and what implications would be. But we felt that while it's not the most prudent thing to prepay the debt to the PERS system or OPEB, which is retiree benefits, having it set aside in reserves frees up the money in case the stock market doesn't do what it's anticipated to do. But it also leaves it where, in an emergency for some other reason, we have that money available to us. So we felt it was the most prudent way to do it, and we know that the council and public always can find a need and a way to spend money. And this was a good way to say it's not all available money that's there to be spent, that we do have this $24 million liability that we want to set aside so that when we do have flush years, that we're not just in that spend mode. So that was our rationale, and I'm sure staff can give you the big, long spreadsheet.
Yeah, no, for sure. It would be good. I mean, you clarified, something for me. I didn't know that it was going into a fund instead of just paying down the debt. And
I'd like to add something to that too.
Okay.
So there's always the trend for us to be super conservative with what we do. We just pushed it out just a little bit because we're doing well and the anticipated growth, and we're above what we're expecting in income, and things are looking really good. This is a great time just to pay a little bit more down off that debt. So we took a little bit of a leap on it.
Yeah, it would be good to just get those numbers in that spreadsheet, and
you're going to love that
helpful.
spreadsheet. It's long.
I bet it is.
So to try and summarize it in a fairly short period of time. So as I said earlier, we have about $1.1 million worth of our payment right now. By the year 2030-31, that payment is going to go up to $2.6 million. It goes up a little bit for the next couple of years, then it goes up much quicker. So whereas you have your 15-year mortgage, it's probably a fixed rate mortgage, where it becomes a smaller percentage of your overall revenue of your earnings over time, as most mortgages do. And that's why people do it. This would become a bigger percentage of our budget over time because of the way that PERS works. Also, it doesn't include any times that PERS earns less than 7% on their money. We create another unfunded liability at that point, so we would have that $2.6 million potentially grow over that period of time for any time that PERS doesn't make their 7%. What the City Council did, and I believe it was in 2016, was put money aside separately from PERS into a 115 trust where we invest it a little bit more conservatively than PERS does. Our goal is to earn about 6.25% on our money, so a little bit more realistic of an earnings rate than what PERS anticipates. That money, since it isn't in PERS, can be used for any pension payment we need to make into PERS. What happens when you put money into PERS is you still need to make, at a minimum, your normal cost every year, the number that they tell you have to make. Mm-hmm. So if PERS loses money, they then require you to pay more money. By having the money in the 115 trust, if that happens and we don't have the revenues in that year, we can go into our 115 trust to make that payment. Whereas if the money was already in PERS, we'd have to make whatever payment PERS owed us. Yeah, this provides us that better cushion for that.
It provides flexibility.
And as I said, looking at the numbers, it does provide in fiscal year 2021 about $100,000 more in revenues over expenditures than this would require. In 21-22, it's about $200,000, and it grows to about $700,000 in fiscal year 23-24. After that, you have about $1.6 million available, and that will decrease a little bit over time. So it really does front end a lot of your pension to get through that issue quickly, and it still does leave you money available. And I'm more than happy to go through the entire spreadsheet and the assumptions with you.
Yeah, in the end, is you're putting this money into this fund instead of some other fund. right? Ultimately, in the end, it's the council decides where the money's going to be spent.
Correct.
Right, and so you put it into this fund, you're making a statement that okay, we're going to be responsible and very prudent with this liability issue. So yeah, it'd just be nice to see that data, and then I can
sure
provide I guess a better. I don't know, I guess direction on how I feel about it. I mean, we've always been, as a council, very, very, I feel, responsible and prudent with how we spend money. I don't think we're a loosey-goosey type of council. I've been on the council for 11 years, and we've been pretty, I don't want to say the word conservative. I don't like that word. But I think we've been responsible with the taxpayers' money. And I definitely know where you're coming from in wanting to put that money in the fund.
One of the things that we discussed was that we're trying to be fiscally responsible by putting half of the excess into this savings plan, basically for our retirement fund, so that we looked at when we have excesses mid-year or at the end of the year, that we look at it holistically, and we thought the 50% number would be a good number to try to balance out these funds and the unfunded liabilities.
And that number is less than what your current policy calls for? Your current policy calls for 40% going to the Pension 115 Trust, 40% going to the OPEB Trust, and 20% for other projects. So what the subcommittee said is, since we're putting so much money up front into the 115 Trust, let's reduce the amount that goes after, when we have more money than anticipated.
Okay.
And which leads me to the next recommendation from the city subcommittee, which was on the one OPEB trust funding, what we would continue to budget our annual required contribution according to the actuary. The ARC is composed of the normal cost and a portion of the unfunded liability as determined by the actuary. By funding the ARC, we're able to set aside money to pay down our unfunded liability. And the subcommittee determined that there was no additional resources need to be committed other than the ARC over the years, because it does bring our unfunded liability down from $5.8 million down to around $2 million in 2031. The reason for this, as I said, is that there's a limited number of employees who are in the program, and that in 2008 you changed it from a defined benefit program to a defined contribution program, so it's not an ongoing growing cost to the city. So that's the changes in the policy that the subcommittee is recommending.
So before we continue with council questions, I do want to just remind our recently appointed committee members and commissioners that you're totally free to leave. I know this is a little bit dry, so if you leave, we won't be offended.
I love this.
And
dry.
At any point, if you want to go, it's okay. You're free to go.
Not everybody loves numbers.
I know.
It's riveting for some of us, but for others, potentially not so much. So, free to go, just in case. We won't be offended. I don't know about Stuart, but I won't be offended. Okay. Okay, now, that brings us to council questions. I know we've had a few. Are there any additional questions?
No.
Yeah, so, again, I'd just like to see that. But do we need to make a decision on that tonight?
I could bring it back as part of, since this won't go into effect until the budget or the mid-year, I could bring it back as part of the mid-year and the budget for next year.
All right. Or I could just take a look at it and we could put it in the consent calendar?
Sure.
So you'd like to take a look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we make a decision, I do want to make sure that the public has a chance to comment on this if they wish. Okay. Seeing no hands, that brings us to council discussion. Would you like to make that, do we need that as a motion or no? To put it on consent? Oh, okay. All right. Is the rest of the council good with that?
Yep.
Well, we don't, this new business.
Oh yeah, we don't need them.
It didn't really have any action, so it was really an informational.
Okay. So we can put that we can put that off to a later date. Okay. Thank you.
You're not losing me yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm the next
right.
one.
So, capital improvement plan review.
Yes.
Take it away.
I'm going to wait for the slideshow to start.
Okay. Now, are you going through every single item? Or are you going through some highlighted items?
I actually have a 10-minute presentation on each of the 80 some odd projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I could do without that.
Oh, man. Randy, that's you.
I know, right?
I mean, I'm just the numbers person. You're the project person. So what's a CIP? So let me just go over briefly, semi-briefly, what CIP is to give people who are watching on TV a background. The CIP is capital improvement plan. Capital projects are made up. Individual projects make up the overall plan. Capital improvement projects are usually multi-year expenditures. They're for new infrastructure or to maintain and replace existing infrastructure of large size, significant costs which could adversely impact annual operating budgets. You don't want to have your budgets have $1 million expenditure one year and then as an operating budget, and then next year that $1 million goes away. It's hard to then as a council budget. So the differences between the CIP and operating budgets are usually annual expenditures based on programs and services provided. They include, as it says, ongoing staff, contracts, those things that keep going over a year, paying for the existing liabilities, as we just talked about. The city's budgeting process, we adopt the budget every 2 years for the operating budget, created based on the council priorities of the council and the community, last adopted in June of 2018. You had a mid-year update in April of 2019. You'll have another mid-year update in 2020, and my hope is that you adopt the budget in June of 2020 for the next 2 years. The CIP, you review it in a whole every 2 years. You last fully reviewed it in 2017. These are the projects that you approved. Projects that we've added to the list are added to the list through various methods, through master plans that you have looked at, through infrastructure plans, city council's suggestions, city commission and committee suggestions, community and staff. Sources for the funding, you have a variety of sources. Business license tax, which was passed in 2018, as I said, that one is tied up through 2050. You've got ongoing revenues for your street projects and gas tax in Measure A. You had the water and sewer capital charge in 2014. We will probably look at doing another bond issue as you approve new projects. The marina fees, they pay for marina projects. You had the sale of the South Hill property, which the City Council had asked the Parks and Recreation Commission, Open Space and Ecology Committee to come to you with suggested projects. You have developer payments for projects. You have grants, and then the general fund is the catch-all for anything else. Your current list is 85 projects. No, we will not go through all 85. This gives you an idea of the value of these. As you see, a lot of them are a large bulk of them are developer-based. As the development happens, they'll be paid for by the developer. Water and sewer is $15.6 million. The ones that are unidentified, and a lot of them are storm drains because we don't have a storm water funding source. It's about $18 million. We have no projects for the business license. As I said, that went to the library. We have some money in grants, like the Crocker Trail would be one, something like that. The marina fees pay for those that go on in the marina, and then annually we get about $300,000 for gas tax in Measure A. We've also looked at the CIP, and we moved some of them more into the we think they're more operational in reality than they are CIP. So they're in a muted red color on your sheets. So those are the new corporation yard facility planning, fire station landscaping, fire station security, remodeling the kitchen and replace appliances and furniture at the fire station, remodel office area at fire station, repave parking, and installing AEDs. These are smaller projects. These are projects that need to happen on an ongoing basis. The projects that the staff would recommend at a minimum that gets funded this year are the Firth Canyon Trail restoration. This is a project that the Parks and Recreation Commission, Open Space and Ecology Committee recommended funding from the sale of the South Hill property. The other one that they are recommending is the master plan for the Guadalupe Valley Trail. They would at some point like to rename the Crocker Trail to the Guadalupe Valley Trail, so that's why I put that name here. It's more significant it's the Guadalupe Valley as opposed to the Crocker Park. So this would be $100,000 to develop a master plan for arts and recreation and for restoration of some of the natural areas. Then also in the marina, it's time to do another bathymetric survey of the marina and entrance channel. So those are the projects that staff would recommend. At a minimum, they get funded. None of those would come out of the general fund. Council previously talked about a couple of projects in the past, the improvements at Bayshore and San Bruno, and an electronic signboards at the community park and Mission Blue. Previously, Council approved $200,000 as part of the mid-year budget to be used for capital projects. And so what we're recommending tonight is to approve the 3 projects, approve up to $200,000 of new projects from the general fund, or if additional funds are needed, direct staff to return in October with additional funding options. And we have presentations for just a few of those projects tonight. I think, Randy, you have 2, and we have Noreen will be presenting on the new signboards. So with that, I'll turn it over to Randy.
Okay, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, good evening. As happy as I would be to go through the 90-plus projects that are my purview, I promise to only discuss 2, and I'll go over them rather briefly. Thank you. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to ask Deputy Director Kinzer to give you a presentation on the proposed traffic control improvements at San Bruno Avenue and Bayshore Boulevard. So the first project I want to touch on is the one that's moved to the operational budget. That's the new Corporation Yard facility planning. Just to give you a sense of what we're looking at there, we're trying to envision out into the future when we have a Baylands development and we've got an significantly increased amount of utilities and infrastructure involved, and we're trying to understand both what is the maintenance section of the Public Works Department going to look at, and how much square footage and how much facility are we going to need to house all those people and their equipment. And we're looking at it under 2 scenarios. One of the scenarios is going to be where we own and operate a recycled water treatment plant, and the other scenario is going to be where we may own but do not operate. We contract out the operations for a recycled water treatment plant. And part of the mindset that we're having on that, conversations the city manager and I have had, is we don't want to take a very simplistic approach to enhancing our utility team. You don't say, well, we've doubled our water pipeline, we double the size of the team. And part of the concern in particular with the recycled water treatment plant is typically a facility like that takes 3 people to man it during the day and a supervisor. So that's adding 10 employees, and I'm not sure that's the right thing to do necessarily. And so I want to plan for us where we have a future where we can contract that service out and not just have employees on staff. So that's the mindset. Those are the things we're thinking about. The other project I do want to talk about is the bathymetric survey that Stu mentioned. That's one of the recommended projects. We're coming up on year 3 now of the $3 million dredging project we did out at the marina. And the reason we want to start doing the bathymetric surveys on a regular basis is we want to gather good data and get a good baseline for what the sedimentation rate is out there. That'll do a couple of things for us. It'll let us plan and forecast dollar amounts for the next dredging, and it also lets us plan when we need to do the next dredging, as opposed to waiting to the point where at mean low tide we have the bigger sailboats stuck in the mud. So we absolutely want to avoid that. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Karen Kinzer.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council. I want to talk to you a little bit about the San Bruno Bayshore intersection and the CIP recommendations for that location. The Complete Street Safety Committee did observations and studied the safety concerns at this intersection over the past year. They did observations in the morning, in the evening during commute hours, and once on the weekend. They borrowed a radar gun from the police department. They kind of did the whole thing, and they reviewed, you all know the intersection, that one. They reviewed the accidents that had happened there, and they came up with some recommendations, and then they met with the council liaisons, Mayor Davis and Councilmember Conway, and went over those recommendations, and they were asked, the liaisons asked that staff bring this to council when they considered the CIP. Ultimately, they want to recommend a new traffic signal at that intersection. I don't have a slide for a picture of a traffic signal because everyone knows what that looks like. At the planning level, the estimate is $500,000 for a new signal system there. In the interim, or if that can't be funded, they wanted to propose a number of operational changes to the intersection. And I have a slide for each of these. I can tell you a little bit more about them. They'd like to prohibit U-turns in both the northbound and southbound direction. there have been a couple of collisions related to U-turns, and they observed a lot of near misses. They want to restrict left turns from San Bruno onto Bayshore northbound during the peak commute hours, so the traffic is heaviest on Bayshore during that time. People may want to turn left on San Bruno at all times of day, but it's most difficult during those commute times. We wouldn't restrict the shuttle because that would change their whole path, and the timing wouldn't work out with connecting with Caltrain and with BART. So we would allow shuttles to make that turn and create a refuge for them. And then we would remove one parking space to not heavily impact that business area, but to increase the visibility for those people turning left.
What about prohibiting left turns entirely?
That's possible.
Because I would be curious to know when, so you gave a report of the different accidents that have occurred, and I'd be really interested to know if they mostly fell within the commute time hours or if they still occurred outside of that, because then it just may make sense to not have left turns at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can't promise that all of the accidents happened during commute times.
Right.
I believe the fatality that kind of brought this to the forefront did not happen during commute hours, as I recall. So I think the committee was reluctant to recommend that significant of an impact, but that would also improve the situation there. I mean,
because it would keep the flow of traffic going for everyone wanting to turn right. It would be a significantly cheaper remedy than putting in a stoplight, and it would allow the traffic to continue on Bayshore pretty easily. And I think that if you just remove the parking space, because the parking space, if you are turning right, either way, the car there can really impact your visibility. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Continue.
No. Yeah, that's if the council recommends that, we can look at that and come back. I mean, I think, we just heard that some people still preferred to use that route. We got community input, but I don't think it's out of the question. And it adds a minute or two. It's kind of a head scratcher why people turn left there if they're going northbound when there's a signalized intersection at Old County, that seems safe.
So, and that's been the cause of the accidents, right? It's people who are turning left from San Bruno onto Bayshore, and for the most part, and then it's people who are doing these crazy U-turns, either going in the northbound or the southbound direction. So if we prohibited both of those turns and we prohibited left turns, then I think that would be a potentially very cost-effective solution and would keep the flow of traffic moving.
So I have a question. If they prohibited U-turns, and right now I use this intersection to turn right quite often onto Bayshore, but if they prohibited U-turns, where would traffic actually be able to get to? What would be the next intersection they could use to make that U-turn?
Yeah.
Would that be at Old County Road?
So in the northbound direction, they can U-turn at Van Wars and Rogers, and the sign could indicate that the U-turn is X. It's less than 1,000 feet to the north. Southbound, you do have to go all the way down to South San Francisco.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I was just going to describe these a little bit more, that in this situation, in the note, if we wanted to prohibit U-turns, we wanted to use a mast arm because we have other intersections where we have a signal pole in the middle of the intersection, and those get hit quite frequently and they're expensive. So we'd recommend putting those signs on mast arms. Those mast arms would be scaled and designed for a future traffic signal, so they'd be ready and in place and would potentially defray some of the cost of a new signal if that were the direction we went in the future. And then the left turn, that's a sample where there's the shuttle refuge lane so that they could pull out and make their movement. They're kind of doing that now, but this would legitimize that for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be just no left turn at all hours except for shuttles.
Yeah.
Or I would even broaden this because I don't think 9 a.m. is encompassing enough. I think it would need to be 7 to 10 and 4 to 7.
Yeah,
definitely in the morning. I don't think think that needs to be broader.
The traffic doesn't drop off precipitously at those times. Again, the committee was just looking at not overly impacting, but that could be considered too, definitely.
I think it's between a rock and a hard place because we've heard over and over and over from the community that they want a solution for this intersection. Will they like it once we give it to them? I'm not sure. But.
And this could be, the council could approve this, and we could see if that improves conditions there on its own without a signal.
Okay. So we have a couple more presentations, right, and then we can deliberate on this.
Well, no, I mean, if we can just stick to this, since it's fresh here and Karen's. Are you finished, Karen?
I am, but I think Randy wanted to
add. And I'm just going to add one thing because I'm going to ask Karen to go back to the overall slide of the intersection. The first one, there we go. So I really appreciate the work the Complete Street Safety Committee did on this. They were trying to solve a lot of problems. And I just want to note one thing, though. With the proposal to install, either right now or if we want to look at it as an ultimate improvement by try something else out first, the challenge that we're going to have, and I just want you to be aware of it, if you put a traffic signal in there, it absolutely will fix the safety problems associated with making left turns, whether you're going northbound from San Bruno to Bayshore or if you're already northbound on Bayshore and trying to get up to San Bruno. The unanticipated consequence that's going to be there is it's going to lengthen the amount of time that you queue and wait to make a southbound turn from San Bruno to Bayshore. Because if you look at the map in front of you, if you've only got room there for 2 cars to queue up waiting to turn north on Bayshore. So as soon as you get 2 cars there, everybody else is going to be held up, and there's not going to be any opportunity to make the right-hand turn. So I don't say that to disparage the work that the Complete Streets has done. I just say that so that you don't make one decision and then end up with another problem that you weren't anticipating you were going to see. So thank you for that, and I know Mr. Lenz had some questions, so I'll get back to that.
If I may, Madam Mayor. So I like the interim recommendations that were made by the Complete Streets and Safety Committee. The refuge, the safety refuge for the shuttle, I think is excellent. It's clearly designated, for that, and badly needed. In regards to the U-turns, a lot of people make the U-turn. Let's say they're coming north, they will make that U-turn before the intersection. And I know that we have some of these plastic little stick divider things. Is it possible to stretch that a little bit farther south so that it just makes it so now you have this barrier that a car has got to go through it in order to make that U-turn?
Are you talking about coming up from the what we used to call the Hitachi curve? You're talking about the northbound direction, sir, before you...
So someone's coming north. They've just gotten onto Bayshore, say...
From 426A from that... Okay, because people make it all sorts of these maneuvers here.
They are making the U-turn so much sooner before that intersection. If we could add those, I'm...
Yeah, if that's the council's desire, we could certainly do that, and it wouldn't add a significant amount. I mean, it would add like a reasonable change order percentage increase on the dollar amount that Karen's come up with the committee.
Okay. I don't know if we're going to have any discussion now, or do you want to have a discussion later?
I want to have a discussion. That's what I was meaning. I want to have a discussion when we've seen all the projects, so it's all in context.
Okay. All right. This one is kind of different. But, okay.
I think we're probably all going to be in agreement, but just to have them all discussed at the same time. Are there any other questions about this? Okay.
I did have a question, and this may be not quite related to this, but we see the list of how many accidents have happened here. I see a lot of accidents that happen at Old County Road with a signal. And do we have any correlation on how many accidents happen there with a signal compared to this unsignalized? Have we looked at it? I know that this intersection has a lot of traction with the community, and we had a very public tragic accident there that got everybody's mind on it. And I'm just wondering if this really is where more of our accidents are happening than they're happening at Old County, because that's where I see the accidents happening.
Ma'am, I think we can just ask the police department to pull the Switters reports, and we'll take a look and get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry, Switters is the statewide integrated traffic reporting system. It's acronym friendly.
Do you have any other items, Karen, to report out on?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So, Noreen.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm here to talk to you tonight about the signboard upgrade project that both the Parks and Recreation Commission and Open Space and Ecology have been working diligently on. So there's our beloved signboards, everybody's favorite source of information in town. Some might even say that if it's not on the signboard, it didn't happen. And many of you might even remember that they used to be hand painted.
Yes, I love those days.
Yeah. In 2017, the city facilitated a community-wide needs assessment survey where the question was posed about upgrades to the signboard. Although the responses were very divided, the largest percentage noted that they would support some form of an upgrade to the current signboards. However, they also expressed a strong preference for an alternative solution that preserved the small town charm. In fact, several said, "No Las Vegas lights, please." I think when people hear the words electronic signboard, that's what they think. They envision that. The flashy, in-your-face advertising like these and those that you may deem unpleasant all along 101. Before I proceed any further, I can reassure you that none of the LCD LED displays that you see here are being proposed tonight. What most respondents didn't know when they answered that survey question was how much the current signboards cost to operate and how much waste they generate. So I'm hoping to give you some context this evening. We spend approximately $8,000 a year on paper alone and generally print 20 to 30 signs per week, with the cost of paper continuing to rise. Park and Rec Department staff spend anywhere from 5 to 7 hours a week fielding requests for signboards and printing signs. They also spend about 2 to 3 hours a week putting up signs and removing them every 6 to 8 weeks from the signboards. The paper used is chemically treated thermal transfer paper, which makes it non-recyclable. Given this, the signboards contribute approximately 1 ton of waste into the landfill every year, not to mention the signs that blow off the signboards in inclement weather days, and we've even had reports of some of them, pieces of them, showing up down at the marina.
Jesus.
Yeah. The Parks and Recreation Commission identified this project as one warranting more attention, and staff was directed to convene an ad hoc subcommittee comprised of representatives from Open Space and Ecology, as well as Parks and Recreation Commission. The subcommittee met multiple times in 2018 to review alternatives, define the pros and cons of each, and identify a viable solution that would be palatable to the entire community. They looked at letterboard signs, split flap signs, scrolling messaging signs, and LCD LED options before landing on e-ink. So what is e-ink and e-paper? Think a Kindle or e-reader. The technology was commercialized by e-ink, which was co-founded in 1997. And the e-ink company was so nice to actually send us a display. So I'll stand it up so that you can see it while I talk a little bit more about the technology.
Need a hand?
Do you need help?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hang on. Help's coming.
Pretty nimble there, Kevin.
It's a big Kindle. I'm glad I don't have to carry
Can
it.
the public see over there? Maybe we should wield it over, too.
So I'll let you guys see it first, and then if we can turn it. Thanks, Kevin. My Vanna.
It's a big iPad.
And I apologize, when they did this demo display for us, it had Clark as our mayor, so sorry, Matt. So the technology behind e-paper is very complicated, but simply put, it mimics the appearance of ink on paper. At the core of e-ink's technology are small capsules filled with clear fluid containing tiny particles, each about as wide as a human hair, sandwiched between a layer of electrodes. When a positive or negative electric field is applied to an individual electrode, the particles with the corresponding charge will either move to the top or the bottom of the capsule, making the surface of e-paper display appear a certain color. In its most basic form, that's black and white. The white particles carry a positive charge and the black particles a negative one. If the electric charge applied is negative, the black particles will be repelled to the top of the capsule and color the surface of the display black in that spot. Furthermore, these particles do not require power to stay in their position. They can maintain a static image indefinitely until a new charge is applied, meaning that e-ink's technology is extremely power efficient. Today, e-paper is being used by smart cities and businesses around the globe for applications including transportation signage, conference room displays, parking meters, shelving labels in big box stores, and more. Because the displays use reflected light rather than creating their own light, they do not contribute to light pollution. The displays are easier on the eyes and offer a wider viewing angle than most other displays. Content displayed on e-paper remains perfectly visible even in direct sunlight. On the right-hand side, you'll see a wayfinding e-ink display that the City of Boston installed. This technology could even be used in the future to replace the city's paper postings of public meeting agendas. These are just a few other examples of how e-ink is being used throughout the world, on green cafes in Shanghai, transit pavilions in Japan, in art galleries and concert halls in Taipei, and even on parking meters in Sydney. The ad hoc subcommittee recognized that the community may be resistant to the change and therefore approached the project with a great deal of sensitivity and thoughtfulness. This alternative solution is non-light emissive, provides a similar paper-like appearance, consumes minimal power, and supports the city's climate action plan while simultaneously reduces waste to the landfill. The proposed solution includes a dual-sided display at the community park, replacing the existing signboard, but retaining the wooden frame to preserve the aesthetic, and a similar single-sided display to replace the one at the Ridge. The added benefits are the ability to accommodate all message requests received for signboard promotion and easily program it remotely, therefore reducing staff time. We oftentimes have to reject signboard requests if the queue is full, and this system would allow us to program the rotation according to our preference. For example, you could have 1 message a day or 5 messages a day that update every hour. The system could also be used for informing residents in the event of an emergency. Both the Parks and Recreation Commission and Open Space and Ecology Committee are unified in their recommendation of the e-ink signboards. If you compare the cost of material and staff time for the existing signboards, which is approximately $20,000 a year, to that of the one-time cost of $90,000 for the e-ink solution, you can amortize it over 5 years and it will have paid for itself. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I will do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Council questions?
What's the lifespan of this unit and the warranty?
So there are no components of the e-ink solution that have a shelf life. Most failures in digital technology have to do with light itself, and because that's not a component of this, the lifespan is indefinable. They do have some installations that have been in existence for over 20 years.
Do you know what the warranty is?
It's a 1-year warranty.
So if you spend the $90,000 and it goes out in a year, we spend another $90,000?
Well, is it that it's each unit? So there's like 4, it would be 4 of them, right? So
it would
combined, it wouldn't be 90?
3, I think, units.
Well, 90 is the total cost.
Oh, 3 units, right.
Yeah.
So if one breaks, then it would be, what, like 30, you'd replace 30,000. It'd be 30,000 essentially, right?
Yeah.
Less.
Right.
This number includes the install and the setup of the electrical and
so
such.
Probably less.
Yeah, and the unit itself would be vandal-proof, so it would be tempered glass covered with acrylic to protect against damages.
Noreen, do you have any data on how many of these have gone down, given that they're an expensive item with only a 1-year warranty?
I don't.
Can we,
but I could
pay another $10 for an extended warranty?
I could certainly ask.
I think this is a lot better than what we've seen in the LCD kind of things. The 1-year warranty, when they're touting that they could be in existence for 30 and that they're vandal proof, makes me wonder why they only give a 1-year warranty if they're so long lived.
We could probably get some field data on that, right?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to ask the company if they would be willing to extend a longer warranty.
I think it looks fantastic.
Any other questions?
No, but I think it's a no-brainer.
Okay, so I guess that will bring us to, hold on, we have to see if there is public comment, which there is. So I'll go ahead and open this up to public comment. If there's anyone wishing to talk about any of these items. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move to discussion. So we've had quite a few items brought forth by staff. Not to throw a curveball, but to throw a curveball. I actually had one of my own that didn't come up until recently when I was on a walk. And I've noticed, and I don't know if there's plans for this already, but I've noticed that a number of our walkways are in need of really good weed removal and dead tree removal. And also there is not lighting that's working on some of them. So if someone is using them at night, it is a serious hazard, especially from Humboldt to Sierra Point. There's a plum tree that drops plums in the summer, and then it's really slippery, and there's all these little seeds that you could easily trip on. So, and then I have a couple of pictures that I can share with staff, but I was walking them and noticing that the sizing of the stairs varies all throughout the walkways. So you might think that there's not a stair there, but there's a tiny couple-inch stair, which you can't really see because a lot of the weeds have grown through the stairs, or the stairs completely rotted out because some of the stairs have wood on them. And so I would really like to see, because we've made walkways a priority in the past, I would like to see some of these walkways get a little bit of an upgrade because they are such safety hazards, and then also try to figure out if there's a way where we can make the steps a little bit more uniform, especially if someone's walking at night. If the stairs are changing in size all throughout the walkway, that could pose a potential, I think, liability risk to the city. So I wish I would have had the opportunity to bring this forward a little bit sooner, but I just had this walk. So I don't know how much that would cost, or if staff could give maybe a perspective on that, or if that work is already planned. I don't know, but I'd love to see that get addressed.
So to be clear, this is the extension of the alleyways. It's a little offset, and you access it at Sierra Point through a driveway, and then there's a set of steps.
Not that one. Okay. So we do have that one. I think we plan to
do a design.
To do something on that. Yeah, so this one is one that's the one from Solano up to Sierra Point. That has a considerable amount of dead trees and a weed situation happening. And then from there, you would take that the next staircase would be the Sierra Point to Humboldt, where the top of the stairs is cement, and then the stairs throughout the rest are cement with wood on them. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
We call it Upper Bicentennial Walk.
Bicentennial, yeah.
Okay. Learned something new. That's the one. So those two in particular, I did walk the one from Mono to Sierra Point. I believe that one there. It looks like somebody has come in recently and done some weed whacking. I think a lot of them have branches that are really low. So especially if you're walking at night or you're just a tall person looking down, you could completely run into them. So I'd be happy to share pictures with staff or take a walk with you. But I think while we're talking about these types of issues, it might be great to get an estimate about what something like that would cost. And I know you don't have that right now.
But I have a little bit to tell you.
Okay.
Particularly on the Mono stairway, council funded last March, I think, to make improvements there. So those are underway, and we cleared the overgrowth on one side so that we could access the steps and make repairs to steps.
Right.
So and you asked for a handrail there. So you funded $50,000. We can repair the steps. We can get a handrail. There will be some money left to put some lighting there, but probably not as much as the whole thing warrants. But we're looking at maybe a couple of solar lights for that one. As for the Bicentennial and the other walkways, those should get weeded with the weed abatement not sure about trimming trees, but we can, with operational funds, remove dead trees and trim them. I think it's not just been something we've looked really closely at. And the committee is also working on expanding safe pedestrian routes, and they're looking at these properties that are designated for stairways and what's the priority, and let's look at trying to light them when we do make improvements to them. So
Yeah, I'd be really interested to get lights on the one from Humboldt to Sierra Point specifically, and also to understand if there is something that we can do to make the stairs a little bit more uniform, because right now I think they're a little bit of a hazard because they're vary in size.
yeah, staff would like to see them be concrete, because then they
Right.
need a lot less maintenance and you can make them uniform. And then
Mm-hmm.
also on top of that, we're planning to apply for the Transportation Development Act Article 3 through CCAG for the Alvarado to San Benito. That's just a dirt path now, to make that concrete and have a handrail and have lighting. So as those grants become available, we can try to get outside funding to pay for some of these.
Is it possible to get an estimate on some of the work that maybe isn't within our budget currently, like aside from just removing trees or weed whacking, to do those other major improvements like making everything concrete and putting in substantial lighting? Would it be possible to come back with an estimate on that?
Definitely.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what you're suggesting. I'm in full favor of those recommendations.
Great. So why don't we go ahead and go through the list? I don't think we need to go through every single item, but certainly if there are items that jump out to you that you would like to see, maybe that's where we should start. So does anyone want to go first with what's on their wish list?
Perhaps we should look at what we've done on the spreadsheet.
Sure.
That we don't have funding for, that's we already listed as important to us. Does staff have an easy way to do that?
The only projects that council has talked about in the past that you didn't fund last year was the e-board at the community park in Mission Blue and the traffic.
Right.
And
at
trails.
San Marino. So those were the two that weren't funded from last year. That's why we brought them back specifically this year for that discussion.
So aren't you looking right now to obtain $200,000 in projects is what our budget is looking at?
Well, that's what you have.
Which would be these two.
That would be those two. I mean, it would be an interesting question. So $90,000 for the cost of the e-board, and it would be about $50,000 for the signage, maybe a little bit more based on doing a little bit more work. So maybe $55,000 to $60,000. So that would still leave about $50,000 available. That, as your finance person, I would say if there aren't any projects that jump out at you today, you don't need to spend, and we can set it aside for future projects that the city council may want to look at as next year we find if there's more money available.
So staff has recommended.
Oh yes, I mean at the moment staff is recommending the Firth Canyon restoration and the master plan for Guadalupe Valley, both coming out of the South Hill money, and the bathymetric survey of the marina coming out of the marina funds. Neither of those affect the general fund. And then if council wants to do the two projects that have been presented tonight that council talked about previously, and then if you want us to bring back a cost for working on doing additional work on the walkways, and we can do that in September, October time frame.
I'd also like to get dog park lighting in, because that
is actually, you've already approved it.
Oh, okay. I was like, I feel like we already
right, you already
said
did,
yes
and that's
to
why
that.
it's in blue on your sheet.
Oh, it's on blue. I was looking at this one.
Oh, it's been approved, and the update for that is that we are working with PG&E on that to get that lighting in.
Okay, great.
Okay. So when we were talking about the walkways, we decided that we didn't want, because we were spending money on other things. The walkways were important to us, but we decided, well, maybe we might get some grant funding, So let's just move forward with the design process, and then we'll be ready if an opportunity arises. So it sounds like we might be able to get something for that one stairway, just because it's connected to safe routes to school. That one really makes sense.
Yep.
Some of the other ones, I'm not sure. There are some things in here that I'd like for us to talk about. I don't see us, really being in a position where if the money is available, we definitely have the money. In the end, it's what do we want to spend the money on? Is it like Stuart said, you don't have to spend it, but if it's a priority for you, it isn't like, oh, we're taking away from somewhere else. Our city finances are very, very strong. If we're able to, put a significant amount of money into the pension liability, that shows that, okay, yeah, those revenues are strong. And again, it's that balance. What are the council's priorities? Where does it want to spend its money?
What about the courtyard? That was something
the
that...
The courtyard would be something that we would look at as an operational issue. So we'll just take it out of the general fund operational budget.
Okay.
I do have a question for, like, a Stuart or Randy. So, some of these, big ticket items that come from the utility fund. So, we've talked about creating this fund for the unfunded liabilities. Is this something that the council should be thinking about, adding additional money to?
Right. So for the utility fund, what the city council has adopted a policy of is, utility fund is paid for by the utility users. You have, in the past, you adopted a capital charge to pay for $5 million for the projects that we currently did. At that time, City Council said that we would want to do that another 2 times in that kind of an increment. So that way you have a set-aside amount of money for ongoing capital. We haven't raised operational rates since, I believe, 2012. We've raised rates for the capital one time, and we've raised rates to set aside money for the drought reserve, but we haven't raised operational rates. You're going to be, and I think in your July meeting, you're going to be looking at another capital project beyond the $5 million we did. What the recommendation will be is, as we do that next set of $5 million, we would come back with you for another capital charge increase, and then in another 5 years, we'd come back with a third increase, and from there we would be able to roll through the capital fund, because we would have set aside the right amount of billing amount to be able to continue to roll through $5 million at a time.
Okay.
So the council already took that decision 7 years ago, I believe.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm ready to go through the list whenever you are, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Why don't you start then?
Okay. All right. So the recommendations from the Complete Streets and Safety Committee regarding Bayshore and San Bruno, those interim recommendations, I think we need to do them. And I would even go so far, Madam Mayor, as to agree with you about not making a left turn at all. When you look at how many people does that impact, right, in central Brisbane? It's the folks that live in the south, but then how much of a time saver is that to just go down San Bruno and then make a right turn at Old County and then go through the intersection?
I think Karen said it was just like a 1.5 minute time difference. Is that what you said?
That was from the top of the hill. So.
Yeah, and that's...
But you might even wait longer to make the left turn. You might even wait longer. And sometimes when the cars queue and there's that person making that left, and you can just sense the frustration of those people that want to make that right turn, and it's like, okay, come on, you can make the left. It's safe now. You can make the left. But they're nervous to make the left.
And why are we putting people in that position we should not. And so I would make the recommendation to implement the recommendations from Complete Streets, add those additional road dividers along the southern part of Bayshore that Randy recommended that would add a little bit to it, but make no left turn except for the shuttle buses.
And then put the shuttle turnout. What did you call it?
Safety
zone. Safety zone. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely.
So while the Complete Streets is making that recommendation, and we did get an overview from Public Works, does this require more traffic study to make sure that it's feasible?
I think they've already done it.
No, I don't think so. I think the committee just didn't want to make to inconvenience too many people. They thought it would be, not approved. So I would expect them to be in favor of this.
Yeah, they would be thrilled, I think.
Madam Mayor.
So, ma'am, both of the items that have been brought forward to you come under my purview as the city traffic engineer. I wouldn't have brought anything to you that we couldn't implement under my license. So both of them are doable, but they both bring different questions to you. There's winners and losers in it, right? If somebody is bound and determined that they want to come down San Bruno and we're going to disallow them from making a left turn, they will not be happy on this. Obviously, I think the majority of that traffic now, though, coming down San Bruno is making a right-hand turn to go south. They're going to be unhappy if we put a traffic signal in. So we just have to pick sides on what.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's in favor of a traffic signal. At least that's.
That's really what the committee wanted.
Right.
Strongly wanted a traffic signal.
Because everybody that I spoke with thought that, adding the traffic signal was going to solve all of the problems. And at first blush, yes, that might be the case, but the backup up San Bruno, I think, is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
In commute hours, for sure. I mean, even in other times, we've got a lot of traffic going down San Bruno. I mean, I work from home, so I'm in and out all the time, and it doesn't matter what time of day I go down San Bruno. There's traffic there. So I would be in favor of no left turn at all times. And if that turns into a massive pain in the neck, we can
just
readdress
it. Yeah, we can just change it. We can do what was suggested and only allow it at off-peak times. But I really see crazy things happen there all hours of the day.
All the time.
Right. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. But, we do greatly reduce the risk of an accident by not allowing a left turn.
Well, I've had people beep behind me to hurry me up, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's one.
Okay, I think we're in agreement on that.
Okay.
What about the signboard?
Oh, I think the signboard's fantastic. And I know that all of you had some kind of warranty concerns, and I'm sure Noreen can address that. Even if they just said, sorry, we just got a 1-year warranty, I would approve it anyways.
Well, I want to see the field life of it. I mean, there's got to be some facts out there on if they've got this great product and people are using it all over the world. Obviously, it's not breaking down. Otherwise, the company wouldn't be still around after all these years.
To me, what gives me faith is that it is used all over the world. And so if they're in these major cities, absolutely, it's got to be, a good technology.
Yeah, for me, I was super against a digital signboard for a really long time because I just thought it would look horrible. And this was the best one I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I was like, it was a total non-starter for me until this option was presented. And while it's pricey, I think it's important for us to spend more and get it right and have it be something we can all live with. That's not going to create light pollution and it's not going to be distracting. It's going to be easier on staff.
I think it's
not going to contribute to, what's going into our landfills. So I personally think that we absolutely should get it.
Definitely.
But I think that we can bring back. We're going to go through some more items, but I think we can bring this back anyway. Can it go under consent in a future meeting? Because I'd like to get an estimate from Public Works about the items that I wanted to get an estimate on, and then it'll give time also for Noreen to come back with the warranty situation.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that we could probably do this by July 18th, but if not, we'll do it by the September meeting.
And then a quick question, because I know when I brought up a couple items, you said that they were funded out of other sources, not out of the general fund. So do you still want direction on those types of items? Because what Randy was talking about, to look at a courtyard plan, I think is really important. So I would love to have that discussion if it's needed.
That isn't needed. I mean, we'll just do that out of operations.
Okay, great. So,
I got a few.
Okay, go ahead.
So, the Firth Canyon Trail Restoration, I think that's money well spent, and
absolutely
would recommend that. Randy, I guess this is for you. Part of the upgrade City Hall standby generator, that just seems like something we should get. Is that like if you had the perfect world, yeah, it'd be nice to have it, but you don't really need it, or what?
Well, sir, that's hard. It's kind of like being on an airplane and figuring out which kid I'm going to put the mask on first.
Okay, so then
I love all my projects equally.
That seems important to me. For emergency.
It is important, and the fuel supply situation is important. The storm drain projects are important.
What number?
I know.
DPW 05 page.
Yeah,
14.
so it's 229,000.
A lot of money.
I mean, if you want, if the city council wants us to bring that back at a future date, we can bring it back with a little bit more information and what other possible funding sources and where the city. I mean, that would be something I would be more comfortable bringing back in October, November timeframe after I know how the fiscal year ends.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. We talked about the so the alleyway improvement. So we're still going to just wait on that until see if we get the funding.
Are you talking about?
I think that was the one that
I'm just going through this
Yeah,
thing
it's
here.
on there.
Is it? Oh, 49?
To 43.
Oh, 43. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Do they fit into Safe Routes to School?
So I guess there's a new round of funding, Karen, that's available.
I said the Transportation Development Act, Article 3.
Yeah.
Regional funding through administered through CCAG.
Yes.
Yes.
So okay, so we'll resubmit. I know last time we tried to get funding for this.
Staff told us they were oversubscribed. It was a good project. All of them were good projects, and we should resubmit. So we're going to try to collect some data. We were thinking about, not to go too into detail, but a next door survey that says, would you use this if it were lighted and improved, and then have that data to say, look at how many people would use it, and
Okay.
make the application a little more robust. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Then we shouldn't fund that. We're all kind of dialed in, ready to go, and hopefully we'll get the money from CCAG.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Okay, got that. All right. So Karen, so I saw you guys out in the field, looking at the stairways, and we talked a little bit about that stairway connection from Humboldt up to Kings. So have you done a little bit more evaluation on that?
That's Project 48.
Oh, sorry, Project 48, yes. And that one's a much higher ticket item.
Which
so.
one is it? DPW
48. DPW 48.
I don't think we've done any more evaluations, sir. That's the one that's completely undeveloped right now. It's
Completely undeveloped, yeah.
No, we've got the estimate on it.
Yeah, no.
That's one of the rougher ones. I'd actually rather deal with the Alvarado San
Yeah,
Pedro.
no, for sure. I mean,
it's pretty straightforward.
That's one people don't even know exists. I mean, it's
right. I think you may be one of the few that do. Yes.
Well,
I only discovered that
trails.
once we.
I know we went on a little walk.
Yeah. Jeez.
Take machete
right?
Yeah.
Well, sir, and Karen's whispering in my ear that's one of the ones that if you had a mind to fund a design, we could do that, and then funding a design is a good initial step for getting a solid project estimate put together. So,
How much would that cost?
they're in the $25,000 range, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
As you're bringing back things, Stuart, I mean, if we just put that on the list just so it's on our radar.
That's a good idea.
I mean, it doesn't mean we're going to fund it, but at least, we're aware of it.
When we come back and reevaluate the items that we're unsure on,
Mm-hmm.
include that,
We'll include that as the design. So
and
that
then
way-
the generator, right?
generator.
And alley improvements, we don't
I'll
need
bring.
to come back with that, right? Because we might be able to get a grant.
I mean, we'll bring it back and just so that way it's on the list, and we'll just put it potential grant funding, so you don't act on it at that point, but at least it's kept in mind. And so when we do this again in a couple of years, if we haven't found grant funding,
Sure.
then the city council can make a decision at that point.
So all these things that are for the fire station that say move to operations budget, but then funding sources says general fund.
Right. So it'll come out of operations general fund. So those will be done.
Okay, so we don't need to comment on those.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have any more, Cliff?
DPW-71. So that's the Guadalupe Canyon Parkway safety improvements. So on a different note, but just dealing with Guadalupe Canyon Parkway. So this afternoon I sent my cross country runners up the the Ranch Road Trail, and we've been running from Brisbane up to the park, and I see that trail gets so much garbage. I mean, it's disgusting. The amount of large ticket pieces of
People
garbage.
come
I
and
mean,
dump all the time.
TVs and,
Yeah.
Wait, where are we talking? Where?
Sofas.
They just dump it off the side of the canyon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
Guadalupe.
and this just made me think of, if we could, reach out to the county, because that's in the county park, and try and come up with some kind of solution to, I don't know if it's like fencing or something
Right.
along there to limit the easy access of just pulling your car over your truck and just dumping.
And that's
then
going
going.
into habitat.
Well,
It is.
And not only that, there was a group of Brisbane residents probably within the last 6 months who spent an entire Saturday hauling that stuff out with the help of Public Works, just volunteers. So, and then 2 weeks later, there's more stuff there. So,
Oh my gosh.
Well, we can't even stop the people with dump trucks dumping
On Tunnel.
asphalt on Tunnel Road
Right.
and rocks and everything. I mean, people's bad behavior is amazingly bad.
Yeah.
I think some type of fence might.
But yeah, because this is habitat, right? I mean, this is St. Bruno Mountain. This is
some fence there to
You know-
stop them just dumping stuff.
But
right out of
can
the
we
road.
even do a fence there because it's county land and
We can
state
request
roadway?
it.
yeah. I mean, just a request to work, to address it, and I don't know. I mean, if it's something that's important to us, maybe we could contribute a portion, to do it.
So why don't we start those discussions with them and see how far we get?
Oops, sorry. So I think perhaps the best initial step would be is to make sure that whenever we see those, just report them directly to me, and then that way I can report it directly to my counterpart at the county, and we can keep a track of how many dumping incidents there are, because there are a bunch of them. I acknowledge that we get them at our turnout for the water tank as well. Although every now people drop everything there from refrigerators and mattresses to one time I saw a fellow trying to drop off a skunk.
No.
It was very unfortunate for him because as soon as he took the cover off the cage, he had actually transported the skunk in the back of his car.
Wait, a live skunk?
Yes, ma'am. And then when he took it out,
I thought it was a
I saw this big cloud of gas, and I just kept driving. I didn't want any part of that.
You're like, go skunk.
A skunk, actually, I could kind of understand. But
All right, and then there was
Animal relocation
couple of
is
things,
illegal.
Stuart.
Yes.
In regards to like the soccer field, and there was another one, the gymnasium. I mean, are these just like leftovers from a long time ago?
Uh-huh.
They are. They just stay on.
Right. They're on. I mean,
Because like where would they
council-
be? So
oh, okay. So I can speak to that because a lot of these were
From Parks and
Okay,
Recreation.
from Parks and Rec when I was on the commission, and Kevin's here, so he can correct me if this is no longer a priority, and obviously so is Noreen, but I really would like to see us install a bathroom at the Littman Field. I played soccer there for years. We had games there. We had practices there. And if you had to go to the bathroom, it's like you almost like you would try to hold it for as long as possible because using the porta potty was just horrendous. And then when you get a game there, you have parents, you have two teams. There's a lot of people using the field, and it's essential to have a bathroom there because then it's quite a long walk. If you're going to try and go into the pool, is the pool going to let you come in to use the bathroom? Is the pool going to be open?
Mm-hmm.
All those things. I think $90,000 for a full-blown bathroom, I don't think it's a poor use of money.
We could look at it as the money, though, right?
Well, no. So the school district no longer. This was an issue that we were.
I thought they had the money. They said,
Well, we were
fees.
thinking that the school district was going to do this, and I think I reported it to council.
That it was use it or lose it.
Well, right, but they're using it for something else. So what happened was when the school district tried to use it, they found that DSA would not approve it because the slope at the back where they would put it was not to grade for ADA.
Okay.
So they cannot so DSA would not approve that on their site where the best location for it. So if we were to do it, we would still need DSA approval because it's still on the school district site, and we would need to then try and figure out where would we be able to put it that the DSA would approve it.
Can you put it where the porta potty is right now? Because that's pretty flat, right?
It is pretty flat. I'm not sure what the connections for water and sewer would be for there. And we would probably need to come back with a better estimate as to what this would cost and what size it would take up, and if we would lose parking or if we would lose field.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can come back with a better estimate for this.
That would be
but
great.
But yes, this was something that we were going to trade out with the school district, where the school district was going to do this, and then we were going to work with them on their all-weather court.
Yeah.
Well, they did their all-weather court with the money that they were going to put here because the DSA said, no, you can't do that because the ADA grade of the back...
yeah, because it's really steep going up that way.
So therefore, it was not up to snuff for DSA.
Okay.
Personally, I would like to bring this back.
We can take a look at it and try and come back with chances are it will be higher than the number you're looking at here.
I don't like that answer.
So Stuart, on the project number PR6, so the marquee sign for Mission Blue, and I know that's been a top priority for folks at Park and Rec Commission, and so is the 30,000 amount because that large?
No, this would be more of when this was looked at. It was more of a marquee sign of what some of the images of LEDs that. Because the idea was to make it big enough that it could be seen from the road and larger for parties and for other things. I mean, there was already a sign there for Mission Blue. This would be to announce that, so-and-so's wedding tonight. So it would need to be a little bit more brighter, a little bit, because it's for people who aren't as used to seeing it. So this was more of a traditional marquee
Okay,
sign.
so this was it E letter?
E-ink.
E-ink. That type of sign.
That was not what the issue was. I mean, we can go back to Parks and Recreation Commission and see if something like this would work for that.
I'd like for them to reevaluate and
we can have that happen.
Personally, I'm not in favor of a sign there. I know that's not a popular opinion,
I just find another head shake.
I just feel like at $30,000, we have a lot of other things that I think take a top priority that are more essential.
Well,
so
and
for me,
they would benefit residents more than potential renters, where we don't have a lot of income coming from the Mission Blue renting facilities. In theory, because
we're using more and more for community events.
Yes, one thing that when we do bring this back for a harder look in October, can we have the dollars updated to $2,020?
Yes.
Yeah, I would be more in favor of even doing more improvements with the kitchen. at Mission Blue.
Oh, yeah.
I know, like, I mean,
Make
that's
it a
where I would
usable
spend the
kitchen,
money.
but I'm not sure that would ever.
Yeah.
And we can look to see if we can make it more of a commercial kitchen, but the size of it may
Yeah, the size is
preclude us.
prohibitive.
I'm not even meaning a commercial kitchen, but something that actually can be used.
Well, you don't even need shelves, right? Because it was designed like a residential kitchen. When, you know, if you're there for an event, you don't really need to be storing glasses and, you know, utensils. You're using it for that event. So all of the cabinetry is not even necessary.
It is the only complaint I ever get about renting Mission Blue is the kitchen.
Kitchen, yeah, same.
We can take a look as to what an upgrade to the kitchen would cost and bring that back at a later date.
Somebody mentioned maybe pushing it into that other room a little bit.
I think you might need to, and then the question comes is about losing space in the other room and how often we need that space in the other room.
Yeah. Okay.
And what the walls are like.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can actually move a wall.
Any other
I don't know. We'd have to take more time to look at that.
Any other items we'd like to add to the list in October? No? Okay.
If I just get clarity, so some items would come back in October, but some would come back sooner, though, wouldn't they? Or are they all?
Well, I think what I heard was that you would like to have back the e-ink and back in July. What I'm hearing to some extent is that the Firth Canyon, the bathymetric survey, the master plan for Guadalupe Valley Trail, and the changes to the intersection at San Bruno and Bayshore you would approve tonight. The only one that you would have back in July would be that one, because some of the other ones need a little bit more time to get better numbers. And I think those that we need better numbers would be better after we have a better understanding of how we ended fiscal year 2018-2019.
I would like the trail, if possible. I mean, the stairway, if possible, if staff has
Back in
enough
July?
time
Okay.
back in July. Especially if it's not a huge number.
Okay, so we can do that.
That would be great. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So did I understand the direction correctly that you're going to approve?
So we'll make
those for
a motion to approve Firth Canyon Trail restoration, the bathymetric survey, the master plan for Guadalupe Trail or Crocker Trail, and the intersection improvements at Bayshore and
San Bruno.
As amended.
Okay. And okay, and then
We're going to bring this back with the
other one will come back.
warranty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All those in, or do we have a
Second.
second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So item C, consider adoption of resolution number 2019-32, establishing the appropriation limit for fiscal year 2019/2020.
So it's the Stuart Schillinger show tonight. I don't have any overhead for this. This is a annual event, so I don't really need to go through very much of it. This is required by law. So the appropriation limit going forward for fiscal year 2019-2020 is $22,113,000. The estimated tax proceeds that we're anticipating is $16,344,000. So we have a capacity of about 5.8 million. So we are within our capacity, so we can spend all of our tax dollars. I just need a motion to approve the resolution.
Do I hear
a motion to adopt resolution 2019-32, establishing the appropriation limit for fiscal year 2019-20.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, staff reports. Item A, city manager's report on upcoming activities.
The first item is a job with Jerry, State Senator Jerry Hill, which will be taking place tomorrow morning at 8:30 to 9:30 at Madhouse Coffee. Office hours with Mayor Madison Davis will be next Wednesday, June 26th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. here at City Hall in the conference room. Our summer concert series starts off next Friday, June 28th at 6 to 8:30, and I believe runs through all of July and perhaps the first week of August. Yeah. So that is in the community park. And the citywide yard sale will be on July 20th of this year from 9 to 3. You can register starting July 6th, and the cost is $25. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Mayor, Council matters. Item A, add 2 planning commissioners to the Bayland Subcommittee. So at the last Bayland Subcommittee meeting, we proposed to discuss having planning commissioners choose 2 representatives to serve on the City Council Bayland Subcommittee. And we want to bring that forward to you to see if you would be amenable to that.
I have no problem with that.
No, as long as it doesn't interfere with how things are presented to them and cause a problem that way.
Is it the council's intention that they would have a vote or that they would simply participate?
Participate.
So they'd be ex officio members of the committee. They wouldn't vote, non-voting members.
Well, I mean,
we don't really vote
anyways.
We don't vote.
It's just a subcommittee.
We just receive information.
Okay. Yeah, we
just
don't.
talk amongst ourselves.
Okay, as long as if you delegate authority, there might be an issue. As long as you're not delegating.
Yeah, we never vote because everything comes forward between us here.
Yes.
Then that's up to the council.
No problem with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I get a motion?
We did have a discussion about how they would choose, or how we would choose who of the commissioners.
Yeah. So Cliff had wanted them to self-select. I had wanted us to appoint the 2. But, considering the late hour, I really don't want to hash it out too long.
What if the appointees don't want to do it?
They would appoint amongst themselves. So they would, they would self-select among the group and say, I think this person and this person should do it. And we didn't want to make it, it's the chair and the vice chair, since that rotates every year.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted them, Cliff's recommendation was for them to work amongst themselves to determine who those 2 people would be. And I thought we should be the ones who would appoint those specific 2 people. But then that raises the question, not everyone wants to do it. So
I'd go with Cliff.
I would.
Either way.
Maybe I'm not quite sure how you're presenting it, but I would think that it would be like a subcommittee of the Planning Commission that attended the subcommittee of the City Council, and normally we decide among ourselves where we have interest.
Yeah.
On subcommittees, and then sort of thrash it out between ourselves. So I think that might be the best way for the Planning Commission, is to have members of the Planning Commission that are interested and have the time to do that.
Okay, I'm good with that. Do we have a motion?
I don't know.
We need a motion?
You don't need a motion.
No, okay, we're just doing it.
May I comment just on one point? If we can make a recommendation through staff, once we understand, I don't understand how you're going to let self-selection happen. If all commissioners may end up showing an interest, they may all self-select, even though you may want to limit them by topic. So what I would suggest is we just make a recommendation to you, but what I'm hearing is you would like the commissioners to feel comfortable coming and participating in the discussion to build that bridge and the communication. Is that correct?
Well, we only want 2.
But I think Councilmember O'Connell's point is very well taken. 2 may be interested in one topic, others may be interested in another, and they could sort of rotate if you want.
Oh, I think it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, just a Bayland subcommittee, and they can choose.
That's why I suggest
themselves.
that we just make a recommendation to the council on process on July 18th, if even necessary. I don't know that we'll have to bring it back, but we understand you want to, and you want them to be interested in participating in discussion but not voting.
In the event that all of them want to do it, then maybe we interview them. I think what Terry was commenting on was when we figure out our own subcommittees, they're all different topics, and then we kind of hash it out amongst ourselves who gets what, right?
Right, and you're on that subcommittee just like we all have subcommittees we work on. That I think that might be the best way.
Right. I don't think all the planning commissioners have got extraneous time to add to this. Plus, some may or may not be even interested in more taking on a bigger workload. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's just see what happens.
So keep it informal, which is fine.
Yeah.
And the city will advise the commissioners, or you can as a subcommittee, that you're interested in moving forward with this. You don't need a motion to do it. You're not granting them power.
Okay, great. So we'll move to item B, countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. Is there anyone who would like to start?
Well, I think the fiscal and administrative policies subcommittee was well covered already. You want to add anything?
Cliff and I did have a meeting with Bayshore. With Jefferson Union High School District. It was informal. It was an ad hoc meeting. It went very well. We're working on repairing relationships. And we just talked about where we have common interests. We spoke specifically about the possibility of a high school in Brisbane and where they stand on that issue and how we can collaborate to see if that's something that we can accomplish. And started out a little bit rocky, but I feel that at the end we really came to an understanding. We have a very good understanding of where they're at with the issue, and I think that there is a possibility for collaboration on this. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I will say that at the end there was a comment that was made by them that they would not be against having a high school if it didn't hurt them financially.
Right.
So they did say that.
That was our major takeaway.
So they kind of put the ball back in the community's court.
Right.
Okay, is there a way to potentially have a high school that doesn't negatively impact them? And we'll see.
The subcommittee has some ideas of how that might be accomplished, and so we're going to go back to the drawing board and evaluate whether that's a possibility. And Cliff also met with Brisbane Elementary School District Board by himself as I was out of town. So you want to report out on that one too?
Yeah. So I attended the school board meeting and I gave an update presentation, and it was very positive. And it was about kind of providing some of the feedback from the community from the Home for All workshops. Besides the remediation, and making sure that the site is safe. The main thing that was coming from people was connectivity, and having one community, and having a really healthy school district is part of a strong community. And so of course they all agreed on that. And so and I shared with them the positive meeting that Madison and I had with the Bayshore School District, and they were very actually relieved that meeting was productive. And so we're going to be having a meeting with the Brisbane 2x2 next week.
I'd like to report out on BB-CAG before I forget. Thanks to Ingrid, I remembered to bring my notes tonight. So DTSC was there and answered many questions about what's going on with the site. What I thought was really interesting was at our previous BB-CAG meeting, a member of the public had asked them to begin testing for radiation, and they committed to doing that. Then I followed up at the meeting and asked how those tests were going and if those had even been conducted yet. And then they had responded that no radiation testing has been done and they're currently reviewing with UPC whether they even want to do that. So I thought that was a little bit frustrating.
Want to do that.
So, yeah, I was like, let's just do it. So, anyway, that came out, so a little bit disappointing for me to hear. Then they also gave a list of the chemicals that were found in the soil. And many of them I can't even pronounce, so I'm not going to go through them all. There's quite a long list. And a member of the public brought up, well, we would really like to see like what were the amounts of each chemical within the soil. So they said that the values of each chemical would be released at a later date, and upon questioning that, it was in the next 2 months. So I would assume that would be right around now that we would be getting that, because I met with BBCAG quite a few weeks ago.
Who are they going to release those numbers to?
I think they may be posting them on their website.
Oh.
I have no idea. So, they also, the terminology that they use, we're used to OU1, OU2, right? So they are using OUSM, which stands for OU San Mateo County. So there was like a little bit of a learning curve there, because they were using terminology that none of us were using. And then I'm just going through these notes. So it's interesting because they're doing their own outreach process, and they really want to start working with Brisbane citizens, and they want to begin to conduct a series of interviews.
DTSC?
Who they?
Yes, DTSC.
Okay.
About what our concerns are. And they're wanting to do this sometime in the fall. So I was not anticipating that DTSC would do their own sort of community outreach program, but they said that they are going to do that. And another thing that they mentioned was that there was concerns about monitoring the site long term, especially if, whatever level it's cleaned up to, and how are things monitored. And so they responded and said, which I don't anticipate there will be single-family homes, but they said if there are ever single-family homes that would be on the site, they never leave any residual contamination, because a homeowner may decide they want to go out and dig a swimming pool in their backyard or plant a tree. And if there is any residual contamination, then there's exposure that could happen from that. So I thought that was just an interesting piece of information. The draft RAP is going to be submitted within the next 2 months at the time of that meeting, which I think was in April. So have we already seen that yet?
The draft RAP is not out at this point. What has been submitted is the data gap analysis, and they are that's by the applicant, by UPC. The DTSC is moving forward with an analysis on that. City staff and one of our consultants met with DTSC to provide some initial comments on that, so that is in the works. I do want to just also our meeting with DTSC on the city staff was after your BBCAG meeting, and we had discussions about the radiation testing that would be done on OU1 in the future when soils are brought onto that site. DTSC doesn't, as we know, it doesn't have authority over the landfill. That's a regional water board site. So they will be doing radiation testing, and they've actually had some discussions with UPC and their consultants about setting up the protocol for that. So
perfect.
I know that's a concern to the community and certainly to the council, and
yes.
So we kind of pushed that in our meeting also.
Great. And then they also mentioned that landfill closure would be within the next 6 months. And I don't know if so from my notes I can't tell if that was UPC's representative because they were there, or if it came from
I suspect
DTSC,
that's
but-
probably more the application for
Yeah.
the closure as opposed to the actual.
Yeah, so I'm just reading these notes that are 2 months old. So, so I get submitting the plans because that's what it was for the RAP. It was submitting the plans or the draft. And so in terms of so with DTSC, they want to conduct informal meetings with community groups to work on strengthening partnerships with other agencies. And I have no idea how that's going to be conducted, if it's going to be conducted more like one-on-one interviews, or if they're going to have these workshop sessions like what we've been doing and what UPC is planning. So stay tuned for that. Another thing that was brought up by people in the room was a concern about the whole Tetra Tech incident. And so that was kind of a sensitive topic when that was brought up. But where we ended was that UPC acknowledged that they understand that the community has a great concern about what happened at this neighboring site. And they will do everything possible to show how, that won't happen in this case. So that was addressed. But I imagine, and DTSC was very aware that that would be something that would come up in the future because, a lot of people are concerned that if this happened on a neighboring site, it could certainly happen with us. And so we really need that to be addressed as a community and for them to explain, obviously, why that's not going to happen in this instance. So that's a recap of BBCAG. Anybody have anything else to report out on?
So, as we talked about earlier, we had a fiscal and administration policy review on the 10th, and we sort of rehashed that tonight. And then we also had a LunaFest subcommittee.
Oh, yeah. My gosh, that was a few days ago.
Which was basically a recap of LunaFest and the upcoming next year's LunaFest.
Yes, we're going to have that on March 28th. So we're hoping to do LunaFest every last Saturday of March, ongoing, unless obviously Easter prohibits that ability. But for 2020, it will be March 28th, so mark your calendars. Yeah. Anything else you have? Okay.
All right, so I have some. So you and I had a Bayland subcommittee meeting.
Yeah,
so we did call out the issue in regards to radiation testing. So we asked them that this is a major concern of the community. You are going to test every truckload of dirt that comes from the landfill over to OU1, OU2, and they said yes, we will do that. So they are committed to testing for radiation. So radioactivity. So and then also in that meeting, we talked about the need of a really efficient public transportation system. Traffic is also one of the major issues of concern for the community, and we need to exhaust all modes of public transportation to their highest abilities. And so we're going to be dealing with that. And then, let's see. So yesterday, I took the MTC tour that council member Gina Pappin from Millbrae organized. She's our MTC county rep, and she's done a fabulous job representing the county,
yes,
our cities, and our interests. She's she's been pitbull in making sure that MTC listens to us. And that gap, just a few years ago, and now, granted, I can't verify these numbers. I just heard this at a meeting this morning, a commute.org meeting, that we had this 20 to 1 gap between jobs, housing imbalance, and now we've narrowed it down to like 7 to 1 in San Mateo County. And that seems like a big, reduction. So I don't know. I mean, yes, don't quote me on that, but that's what was said. But on that tour with MTC, so Ken Kirky, I sat next to him. He's the guy that from MTC that deals with the housing portion. And I said, look at, we just passed Measure JJ, 1,800 to 2,200 housing units. The developer's on board with that. We got the 4,400 housing units, on that 2040 plan. How about we revise that number to reflect what the people voted on and what UPC has agreed to? And he said, yeah, just, have staff submit, kind of informal letter. They're not ready to make the change, but, have that letter, and when we get to it, we will address it. So, yeah, staff will be.
That's so interesting because they made it seem like it was impossible.
That's a process. We'll send the letter in, but their process doesn't start until 2020.
Yes, and he said that. They said they're not ready right now, but it's a good idea to do that. So he, to have that come from him after the hostilities that we had with him and the other MTC staff, it's trying to mend those fences, I think, is important. And I think it would be also really important for the community to not have that number out there anymore in their plan 2040
yes.
plan, right? That it reflects what we passed. So on the MTC tour, it was a drive-by tour. So I show up at MTC, I get on the bus, and I have like 2 minutes to talk about the Baylands as we're driving down 101.
Oh, they didn't put you on tunnel?
No. So, yeah, I just drove down 101, talked about the different modes of public transportation. And,
oh my gosh, you could have easily gone down tunnel and got right on the freeway.
Yeah,
what
I
the
know.
heck?
They had a timeline that they were trying to make. So, anyways. And then, last week I had a CCAG meeting. Trying to think what the major deal was there. We had a major vote on who should represent the different areas of the county, north, south, central, and coast for the flood sea level rise district. And that was very hotly contested. A lot of council members, applied, and they made their pitch, and every single applicant was really strong. And in the end, of course, you can only choose one. So, but
who got it?
So for at large was Marianne Mosley or from Moses from Petrola Valley, the north. And it was interesting, the north, that, usually you think, it's going to be, Brisbane, Daly City, Colma, maybe South City. They went all the way down to Burlingame. So that, wound up being Donna Colson from Burlingame. Central was, who was Central? I'm blanking out. Maybe it'll come back to me. The South was Councilmember Rutherford from East Palo Alto. Out at the coast was Debbie Ruddick. And, who was that Central one? And I'm blanking out. Sorry.
Charlestown?
No. Oh, there you go. Diane Papin was the Central. So we had a Commute.org meeting this morning, and we had a really good presentation from the San Mateo County TA regarding their work plan and various funding opportunities from Measure A and Measure W. And so I know that we're looking at some of those potential funding opportunities in regards to the Baylands development. That is it.
Okay. So that brings us to City Council meeting schedule. The City Council meeting of July 4th is canceled. So the next City Council meeting will be for July 18th. That brings us to written communications. We have two, one from Dana Dilworth on the 6th of June regarding Brisbane Acres designation of restrictions, and then Jim Skeels on the 12th of June, house party for State Senator Mike Brownrigg.
Candidate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Candidate.
Or state senator.
Or state senator.
Yeah.
I'm reading my notes here.
Yeah. Oh, Madam Mayor, I do have a question for Stuart. And if so, I know we in the things that we're going to budget, and there's things that we're going to bring back. The $200,000 council discretionary fund. If it's okay with council, if we can just bring that back as part of the list, not that we're going to approve it, but just at the next meeting, if that's something that we want to do, just like the lighting for, because then if we had that fund, then we don't have to come back to the council for other, like.
That's not the recommendation.
Isn't that in the budget?
No, it's not a discretionary fund. It was $200,000 that we had allocated for capital improvement programs, of which you've already designated.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I thought it was like that $100,000 thing that we did before. Okay, I thought it was similar for capital improvement projects. No. Okay, I apologize. Then.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, scratch that then. Okay, sorry. I saw that look on your face, Stuart. It's like, I don't know about that. So yeah, no, I thought that's what that one was for. Okay.
Okay, so oral communications number 2. Anybody wanting to speak at this time? Seeing no one, we're going to move to adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.